Welcome to Leading the Way podcast, where you'll learn neuroscience-backed ways to lead more effectively and have more fun at work with what you already have. Hey there, welcome. It's Chris and my awesome friend Samantha and Leading the Way. Samantha, so glad you're with us today. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Of course, of course. Hey, everyone, like always, I want to tell you about our awesome guest. And Samantha, I am super stoked to have you because she is so talented. So Samantha Kaaua is a TEDx speaker, an author, an esteemed marriage coach, and she's recognized for her counterculture way of transforming relationships. She's the founder of The Gyms with Samantha Kaaua and the creator of the Inner Mosaic method. And she's a beacon for individuals learning how to break through their negative family patterns, stuff they were born with and came with, and lay the foundations for loving and trusting relationships. And Samantha's on a mission to help save 10 million marriages, such an awesome goal, and recently launched her international best-selling book, Finding Beauty in Your Broken Pieces, The Art and Science of Transforming Any Relationship. Samantha, such an honor to have you on. Again, thanks for being here with us.
Thank you. It's my honor to be here with you. So I'm just so thrilled to have this
Nice.
conversation today.
Yeah, so important. And just to connect folks, this is a podcast that talks about leading the way, and it's about leading the way at work, but also leading the way at home because they're so interconnected, and leading the way in our relationships. If something's not going well at work and you back up the dump truck and all over your family at home, it doesn't work so well, and vice versa, right? So it's about moving the dial and all these things together. And Samantha, that's why I'm so glad to have you here. Um, one of the things, just to start off with, I know you talk about quite a bit, is it only takes one person to move the dial, make a relationship better, to transform it. Tell me more about that.
Yes, I love talking about this because some people have heard it or understand it quite well, but it's not spoken about in our culture very often, while other
Mm,
people have never heard this concept ever, ever, ever before, because our culture and our society teaches that it takes two to tango and both partners need to participate, et cetera, et cetera.
yeah.
Well, this principle, which it really is, it's a principle, is founded in science. Um,
Mm,
and we love science, right?
absolutely.
And basically, it states that any open system, right? In an open closed systems are circuits, right? There's no input output. It's a working machine, and there's not much going on. Open systems, there's input, output, feedback. Things can change. There's organisms. The best example of an open system is an ecosystem.
Mm,
And we have ecosystems all over the world, micro systems, macro systems, but ecosystems, we know them. And
yeah.
when you change one part of an ecosystem by scientific law, by universal law, by
Right.
just nature in general, the system must and will change.
Yeah.
And the same goes for our relationships. Our relationships are open systems. And if we really look at it from this scientific perspective, we know, based on science, that we can evoke change in any relationship. And
Nice.
that's what I love teaching people.
Yeah. It's so powerful because if someone's feeling stuck, or maybe the other person isn't yet coming along at the pace they'd like to see something,
Mhm.
personal, professional relationship, that means you can do things, you can take actions yourself and your own
Yeah.
control right away.
Yeah. And a lot of people will tell you you can't change anyone, you can only change yourself, which is true, very true. What they don't realize, though, is that we can change the relationship.
Mm,
We do have the capacity by shifting ourselves to change the way we relate to another person, the way we relate to anything, right?
right.
And so that is really what we're longing to change, is our relationship with someone else. We're not actually wanting to change another person. And when we take our focus off changing another person, or the lack of ability to change another person, we empower ourselves to look at the situation and say, oh, I can change the way we relate to each other by just shifting the way I show up.
Mm.
And that empowerment move can really move the needle in any situation.
Right, right. Well, I can imagine too. It can be human nature to make up stories and have our filters and
Mm.
all that going on. And over time, like we're having a relationship with our filters, not with the other person,
So true. Yes.
right? And when we can get past that, which is hard, right? It can be really easy, and our brains like to compartmentalize things. And oh, Chris is a hothead, and so I'm going to only be seen as this hothead versus oh, he's really passionate and this thing really bothered him.
Yeah.
Right? It's a different perception, which can totally shape the relationship, right?
Yes.
So yeah, very
It
powerful.
it reminds me of a book. I we talked about this prior to this interview, but I absolutely love the author Neville, and
Hmm.
he that's his pen name. His full name is Neville Goddard, and he wrote the book The Power of Awareness. And in one of the chapters, he shares a story about a woman who really didn't like her boss. She just did not. She thought he was the grouchiest, meanest boss of all time and never had a good experience with him. And
Mm.
Neville confronted her because she came to him for help, but he challenged her to shift the way that she viewed him. So, what you said
Ah.
earlier about us having relationships with these perceptions, these lenses, these, right? The stories we're telling ourselves about these people is so true. And once she shifted that story and she changed the conversation she was having in her mind with her boss as she's
Mhm.
going to work and she's grumbling, or as she's, at home thinking about her day and how he was so not nice to her. Once she shifted those conversations to imagine that he was actually complimenting her,
Mm.
the reality was she created that and he did that. He ended up complimenting her on her best work ever,
Nice.
and that she was doing an amazing job, and she did not believe her eyes and her ears when she heard that. And that's exactly what we're talking about right now. We are the change agent, and it's about checking ourselves, like, are we relating to this person based on the stories we've told ourselves, based on the past, based on what other people have said about
Right.
this person? And if we are, where can we make some adjustments so that we can change this relationship?
Love that. I love that.
Yeah.
And that great example you gave too is that poor woman was spending so much of her precious life energy about how much my boss sucks, right?
Yes.
Like if they really do, really are that way, like why do you want to spend all your life energy? And I'm guilty doing it too.
Yeah.
Like telling the story again and again, right? Like how many times do you want to relive the trauma? So
Right.
I love that example. That's awesome.
Thanks.
So tell me more. I mean, I know you do work around common communication misconceptions. Are there other things you see in the marriage relationships and other relationships you work in that people just misconceive things?
Yeah, well, there's so many. We could go on for hours here.
Sure.
Um, but I guess to segue between the first principle that I mentioned, which was it only takes one person to transform a relationship, the next foundational pillar, I guess, if you would say, or principle, would be trust. I feel like
Mm,
there's so much around trust in relationships.
yeah.
So many
Yeah.
misconceptions. It goes hand in hand with communication, because if you don't trust a person, you don't believe what they're saying, and
Right.
vice versa, right? So
Right.
trust being even more of a foundation than communication. And what most people don't realize is that our partner is a perfect reflection of our own internal belief systems. And if we're not trusting our partner, in essence, it's something about ourselves that we aren't truly trusting, right? Whether that's,
Wow.
oh, I'm not good with men, or, women are so difficult, or there's just so
Right.
many different belief systems that we could have been brought up with,
Yeah.
and over time have experienced, that is creating this lack of trust yes, with another person, but more so with ourselves in relation to this other person.
Wow, that's so powerful. As you were saying that, I was, just thinking about if someone's making up the other person is high maintenance, we're going to create that whole thing of high maintenance and have a filter to take in. And it might not be high maintenance at all. They might have allergies to a food and it takes them a while to order at the restaurant, right?
Yes.
Or whatever that thing is. But yeah, it's really true. It's so easy to create that and then stick with it. Like stick
Yes.
with that story that doesn't really serve anyone. But I'm only laughing at it because I'm certainly guilty of doing that too.
Oh yeah, me too.
Yeah, yeah.
I've learned the hard way.
Yeah, well,
Not
that
the
makes us the
easy
best
way.
teachers, right?
Yeah.
So, first pillar was takes only one person to transform. Second one's trust. What's the third
Yeah.
pillar?
Yes. And I want to really like land the second one on self-trust. It really is
Self-trust.
about
Okay.
trusting yourself more. If you're not experiencing trust in a relationship, it really is something for us to reflect on and say, where am I not trusting myself?
Okay.
What belief creates a lack of trust in my relationships?
Oh,
Okay.
so powerful. Got it. Okay.
Yes, yes. Um, well, I mean, I did tie the first and second one or the second and third one together where our
Okay.
partner is a perfect reflection and then
Okay.
it really is a foundation of self-trust. But another one that I can speak on today is that everything is a relationship.
Mm,
Everything, everyone. So many people attribute a relationship to a interpersonal relationships. Our wife, our husband, our boss, our child, our friend, family member, colleague. What they don't realize is that we relate to everything in our world. So
ah,
our environment, the computer we're on right now is we have a relationship with it, right? Some of you might have
yeah.
a full storage, so it's you have this wheel of death that comes on every once in a while. And you're
Yep.
like, or it could be, right? We relate to the environment. Some of us don't like hot weather or rainy weather. Um, and when we realize this and we accept this, including the relationship we have with ourselves, our bodies, right? Are we listening to the cues of our body as it tells us, warning, warning, there's something wrong. Please pay attention to me. If we're
Right.
not listening to those signals and having a relationship with ourselves, that's when dis-ease shows up. That's when the disconnection of relationships happen. So
Mm,
I love bringing up this concept because these principles apply to your work, to your
yeah.
home, to yourself, right? And the way that you relate to even the environment you're in. So, yeah, that's
Gotcha.
another really powerful principle that I love to share and
Yeah,
chat.
it's super powerful, and it's as you're saying that too, the geek side of me is reflecting on the quantum physics side of this, right? That at the atomic level, right, the observer changes the observed. And it's been
Yes.
Einstein's work like decades and decades ago, and it's really interesting because we're having a relationship with everything, as you say, and
Yep.
so and our perceptions and interactions fundamentally change everything. It's really,
Every
really interesting at the atomic level that happens. So of course it happens at the whatever level we're at
Yes,
above that,
exactly.
right? Because
It's happening at the such quantum little levels, and then we can't deny that it happens at this macro level too, right? And in
right,
all ways, in all capacities, we the world is experienced through the our lens, and the
right,
way that we experience it is our relationship.
nice. That's so
Yeah.
powerful. I mean, that has everything you do, right? Reading, getting ready in the morning, all of that is all a relationship. That's a really interesting way to look at things. Yeah,
And to bring it back to your earlier question about communication and some of the tips that I've shared over time around
yeah.
that, because I just took a poll the other day on Instagram and I was like, what's your worst, not worst, what's the most challenging aspect of your relationship? And it was a poll between communication and trust and other,
Mhm.
and actually communication won. So communication challenges, I'm seeing from my poll is one of the biggest, struggles, not only in marriages, but I do think even at work, right? Like,
Oh
how do we
yeah.
communicate with another person? Do I need to walk on eggshells? Do I need to be more direct? What way is the best way to communicate? And what I found over the years of working in this field, both professionally and then personally, is that what we're lacking isn't communication skills. So most
Mm,
people are like, I need more communication skills because I don't know how to explain myself so that that person understands me. I actually think we have learned a lot of communication skills over the years.
right.
We have techniques and tools and all the things. What we haven't done well is understand ourselves enough to
Mm,
know what we're actually wanting to say. So what I mean by this is that I have couples, right? I work with couples or individuals on their relationships, and they come to me with all these communication problems, and I say, well, you actually communicate quite well when you're trying to speak to your partner about a certain problem. You just don't know what the problem is.
ah.
And they're like, oh, oh, yeah, I guess so. Oh, I guess I don't. And I've experienced it myself as well.
Sure. That
Yeah,
makes a ton of sense. I'm curious, are there any anecdotal stories you can share or transformations that your clients had without naming names or protect the innocent and all that? But
sure.
like, what kind of things do people enjoy when they work with you?
I think the self-discovery is the biggest thing. And a lot of my teaching comes from my own personal story. So for me, even like I can share my story being about 7, 8 years ago now, where my husband, I found out about his addiction that he was hiding for 10 years.
Mm,
And it was the biggest shock of my life because it was the morning of my comprehensive exam to
mm.
get my master's degree in marriage and family therapy.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I had just started working as a substance abuse counselor.
Oh my goodness.
And
Wow.
I was like, what is happening right now? I don't deserve to be a marriage therapist. I'm
Sure.
a substance abuse counselor. I literally went to work and grabbed one of the workbooks, and threw it at my husband when I came home. And I was like, fix yourself. Um, but really the journey in that, the reason why I actually stayed was because I realized that he was reflecting something in me. And it wasn't
Mm.
this direct reflection that many people talk about, but it was this deeper belief that men lie and men leave.
Oh,
And if you backtrack my story, before I was even one, my parents were separated and then divorced. And then my uncle, who kind of was my grandmother's boyfriend, but she never admitted that and I found out later in life. But he was a really like a second father figure to me. He would take
okay.
me to school, not take me to school, pick me up from school and spend a lot of time together with me. And he passed away when I was about 7, 8 years old. Um,
Mm,
and the way that he passed on was from a heart attack, and he didn't feel good the day before and told
mm.
me not to tell anyone.
Oh,
So I held the burden of feeling guilty for many years of my life that if I had said something, he wouldn't have died.
right,
And so men lie
right.
and men leave. And sometimes when they leave, it's final.
Oh boy, that's a big
And
one.
yeah, and I didn't realize that I had those beliefs until my husband reflected that back to me when I was like, you lied to me for 10 years and
Mm,
that it wasn't the leaving point yet, but
hmm
that was the lying point. And we worked through that. I decided to stay. I said, I'm not going to leave my marriage until I feel like a whole person because I know that the next relationship will likely give me the same lessons. So,
right.
no, I will
Funny how
not
that
leave
stuff
this.
follows you. Yeah.
Yeah, it does, right? And then so we did really well for after that time. Fast forward to about 2 years ago now,
Mm,
and my husband said, I'm not in love with you anymore. I don't want to be with you. I want more freedom. There were a lot of hurtful things said.
yeah.
And I knew, though, it was his addiction coming back, his depression
Uh,
showed up again. I became the enemy number one, because
sure.
I am the person who can call out the addiction and call out the depression, and I am a threat to that. So I
Right.
became enemy number one.
Yeah.
And yeah, he moved out. He didn't want to be with me. We got
Wow.
to the point where we almost filed for divorce. But that was the moment I realized how depressed he was and how much back into his addiction he was.
Mm,
And I did everything that I teach my clients to do. I showed up in love. I set firm, healthy boundaries.
yeah.
I communicated my feelings more than my needs and my
Uh-huh.
desires, because most of us try to communicate, I need you to be this. I need you to do this more or this less. And it's all of the stuff, right? The details. When
Right.
in fact, it's really about our feelings and sharing what's going on for us and processing those things. And I did that and showed up in that way. And in less than about 6 months, he was able to turn that around. And within 9 months, we were back together. And
Wow.
within the year, we were moved in together. So I
Wow.
think actually 9 months, we were moved back in together. We found a new place to stay, fresh start with our family. And
Nice.
our girls got to watch us walk through that in real time.
Wow.
So
Wow.
yeah, it's been a journey.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you first for being so vulnerable and sharing that because I think, all the listeners, we have stuff in our stories and our marriages and our life that might feel embarrassing or scary or I'm not like this. And the truth is everyone's got stuff.
Yes,
It's just different stuff. It's not like we need to grade mine's worse or better, but it's really important to come forward with that and find the support and so glad you two worked it out and
thank
really
you.
the courage and commitment from you, but also from him working through, whatever demons that are there
Yeah,
and an addiction, right? There's most folks with an addiction have a massive amount of pain, and that was the coping mechanism for them to deal with that pain.
yeah.
So coming out of it, they've got to face all that pain again, which
Mhm.
is what they've been running from. I mean, not that I know anything about this. So I've
Yes,
been working through my own stuff in the past. So hats off to you and to him. And
thank
what a
you.
great model for your girls too, to see that when there's bumps and there's issues, because there will be in life,
Mhm.
this is how you pull through. That's a beautiful story. Thank you for
Thank
for
you.
sharing
Yeah, we
that.
didn't go through it quite as eloquently the first time around,
Sure.
7, 8 years ago now. And my daughter, my oldest daughter, she's turning 17 soon. So when she was going through that, it was rough, right? For her,
Sure.
for all of us. And then 2 years ago, her biggest concern, what I checked in with all of them as
Yeah.
this was going on. Her biggest concern was her sisters, her two younger sisters,
Mm,
and what they would experience because of what she experienced.
mm.
And versus her worry about us as parents or how the relationship, she was like, you both will be fine. I know you'll be fine. It's more of like what her sisters were going to experience. And so she got to watch the two of us walk through this differently. So there was a lot of healing that happened even for her in her experience watching us go through this twice. So yeah, I walked through it with much more eyes wide open this time. The first time
Sure.
was my dark night of the soul. Second time was my husband's.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Wow.
But it was really nice because I got to share this story in my book that I wrote and
Yeah.
published in February. And my publisher, not publisher, sorry, my editor, I love him dearly. He's like, I know this is a great story and it's all true, and I know the women will believe you, but I'm a man and I don't know. He's like, I need to hear from your husband. I'm like, okay, okay. So my husband wrote a letter to the reader as a foreword.
Oh, cool.
So
Nice.
that was a really special gift to me and I think to the world from him to
Yeah,
honor and acknowledge that yes, he's not a very public person, but if we can even just help one marriage, then it's all worth it.
right. Right. And you're on the way to do 10 million.
Yes,
That's
we
a
are.
awesome goal. So tell me about that. Is that through your programs, through your book, through other things you're doing? I mean, I'm sure you'll make that goal. I'm just curious what your plan is to tackle that.
Yeah, the goal is to disseminate as much of the information that I've gathered in as many ways as possible. So,
Mm,
I will be launching my podcast soon. I have my book that I want to continue to share with the world. Um, Newsletters, all the things, and I don't think I will do this alone. I think there will be a ripple effect from the people that I help
yeah, for
and
sure.
them sharing the message beyond that. So I don't anticipate directly working with 10 million marriages, although hey, it can happen and I would love it.
Sure.
I do foresee the goal of transforming and helping to save 10 million marriages is really the mission to change the culture around relationships in the
Mm,
world
mm,
because we have it so backwards and it's been backwards for so long. And if we can only flip all the things we've learned on its head,
yeah,
I honestly believe if we restore trust and faith in this world, not religious faith, but
right.
just this the purest form of faith of believing in the invisible, believing in the good, believing in love, that so many of our greatest challenges in this world will subside.
Wow.
So it's it's a very specific mission for a broad like it really is this global impact that I'm hoping for in restoring the trust and faith in humanity.
Yeah.
Um, and just my area of expertise is marriages, and I think that's where I can do the most good. So,
Oh, 100%. I've no doubts about that and beautifully said. So for folks to want to engage with you, and we'll have this in the show notes. So if you're on the treadmill or driving, please don't get in an accident. That's not
yes.
what this is about, but we'll
Oh,
talk through it too, and you can look later and find those things. Certainly your book is a great way to find you.
yay.
And I'm guessing that's on Amazon and
Yes.
folks can find that there.
Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, most of your yeah, outlets that you purchase your books from.
All the good places. And then sounds like you have programs too. Can you briefly talk about what that looks like and how folks can engage to find out about that?
Yeah, I have a program called Marriage Mind Shift. Um, it's right now, it is an interactive program with me, a self-led program will be coming out a little later this year. But it really talks about the shifting our mindset, shifting our belief system around relationships in order
Mm,
to become and be the change agent that we would love to be in our
mm,
marriage, but in every aspect of life, right? Everything's a relationship. So this program is designed to teach you the right mindset to help create and evoke change in any relationship. So yeah,
love it.
that's the main one. And then Inner Mosaic is a model that I created that's spoken about in my book as well, and it just identifies and helps you to better understand yourself and all the different parts of yourself. And
Nice.
when you can love, accept, and trust all parts of self, every one of your relationships outside of yourself will change. It's
Nice.
magic. It's it's beautiful. So yeah, that's another program, but just aspect and teaching that I share with the world.
Oh, it's beautiful. And I don't know a person that doesn't have some sort of relationship struggle, for lack of a better word, or a
Right.
relationship they'd like to be better. You know, the work ones come up a lot, the relationships at home come up a lot, and such good news here, and that we don't have to accept, like we were talking briefly about this before, like, it won't change, and it has to be this awful way, and I just need to survive and hold my breath through life. Life's frankly too short for that crap, and
Yes.
and you owe yourself more. And people like you are so good at helping people find that and move forward. So Thank you
Yeah.
for the work you do. And listeners, I really hope if this is something for you, certainly check out her book. If it's a fit for you, check out her programs and stuff coming too, because you don't need to stay stuck. Um,
No.
absolutely don't. And at least two people here are proof of that. And there's
Yes.
thousands more and soon 10 million more. So
Yeah.
that's really awesome. So before we go, such a great conversation. I always love to ask my awesome guests, what's something you're thankful for?
Oh, I am so grateful and thankful for my experiences in life. And I really want to shout out my husband. He is just so stubborn and so no. I'm just so grateful for the fact that he didn't change who he was for me and that
Mm.
it allowed me to transform myself while using him as this reflection. So I know some of you might find your partners the most frustrating and annoying person in your life. And at the same time, they're your greatest teachers. So my husband is my greatest teacher by far, my best friend. And I'm just so grateful for him and my girls that we walked on this journey together.
Wow. Amazing. Thank you so much, Samantha. Really appreciate it. I know our listeners do. If they could clap for you, they'd be clapping for you, and wishing you well in your journey and how much you can help others on theirs. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks
And
for having me.
oh, 1,000,000%. And awesome listeners, please make sure to subscribe and do all those wonderful things so you see other awesome guests. I'm so fortunate to have amazing people like Samantha and others on the show, and we want to make sure you see all of them. So please do that, and remember to lead the way. We'll see you next time. Thank you for listening to Leading the Way podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe so you won't miss other great episodes like this one. And if you're ready for more in your workplace, be sure to go to aintent.com. You'll find lots of free tools, assessments, and ways to engage directly with us to get your own epic results. We'll see you there.